Hey everyone, Gnogat here. When Legacy of Destruction came out, I had 3 decks in mind that I wanted to play. Yubel, Lightsworn Tier, and Memento. I knew there was Chimera stuff in there and I played a lot of Chimera before, but because I played so much Chimera, I thought it was time to try something else for now. But then I actually played around with new cards, especially Nightmare Apprentice, and the deck actually plays a lot differently now, so that's what I wanted to cover in today's video. Just some combo lines and the way to think about your plays. So let me know if you like this kind of content, put it in the comments below, leave a like, sub, you know the drill, and let's hop into the first combo. Alright, so the first combo I wanted to show you is Coatl and Patchwork. Just to show you like how to think about the lines now with the new support. So before support, you could have done something like Coatl into Sword Knight. Now the issue here is that if you Sword Knight and use the effect, if you want to start your plays that, first you are fusion locked, and secondly also 1 Ash means that you're left with the Patchwork and the other 3 cards in your hand that I assume don't combo in this case, and then you're kind of screwed, right? So let's put this aside for now. And instead we'll use the Patchwork first. That has a specific reason, because if we get rolled here, we can still use the polymerization here to make Baphomet with these two. And after you resolve the Patchwork, in case you didn't get rolled, you use the Coatl, and instead of Sword Knight, you add Gazelle here. So what you can do now is use the poly, fuse Gazelle and chain for Chimera. Now you can resolve the chain, no pun intended. You go chain link 1 Gazelle, chain link 2 chain, and chain link 3 Chimera. This way you block the search of the Gazelle. The chain doesn't really matter because you already used Patchwork, so you could do this as chain link 3, but there's not much that they can use here to negate the Chimera anyway, so you might as well get the 3+. I mean, if they ash you here, then so be it. So you add the Patchwork, you add Nightmare Apprentice in this case, and you resolve this, so in the end phase your opponent will lose a card. So that's nice. And now we already set up the Coatl engrave, which is really nice, because what we can do now is we can summon the Nightmare Apprentice by discarding the Patchwork that we got for free. We can't use it this turn anyway, so if your rest of your hand is hand traps, you just discard this and you still keep your hand traps. Now on summon you can use the Nightmare Apprentice. Now the cool thing is, because we started off this way, we already have Coatl and the Chimera on field. So if your opponent tries to imperm your Nightmare Apprentice, then you can just negate it with Coatl here. So that's protection here. And the Apprentice will now search you the Mirror Sword Knight. Then what you can do is you can overlay these two, because you are not fusion locked, because you didn't use Baphomet or Brand Fusion or anything for that matter. And you can go into either Lars or Beatrice or any rank 6 of your choice, depending on what your deck tries to do. I try to go very generic here, so I'm just going to use Lars. Lars has the nice side effect that you're still protected from Imperm, but you're no longer protected from, say, Veiler or Mourner. Which, if you left the Chimera on field, then you could have, and you still had the Coatl engrave, you could have still be protected from that, but then if you resolve the Mirror Sword Knight, you are fusion locked and you can't go into Lars anymore, or Beatrice for that matter. So it's up to you how you want to play it. I'm just gonna do it for the sake of this combo. If I go blind, I'll probably do it like this. And then you can go Mirror Sword Knight, resolve it, and if they ash you here, you still have like 3 hand traps. You have the Lars negate, you have a revive of Chimera, and you rip a card off their hand. But let's resolve the Mirror Sword Knight. Go into Baphomet effect, and you get Chimera Fusion and Gazelle now. So now what you can do is you can use the Chimera Fusion, use these two to go into your Baphomet, because you haven't used that fusion yet. And you will trigger both Baphomets in sequence. So you can go chain link 1, chain link 2, because this can get ashed and this can't. Like they can have like Bell, but whatever. And you just revive the Mirror Sword Knight, you know that part, and you send to the graveyard your Diabels, which you can use in your opponent's turn. Now you can add back the Chimera Fusion, set it, and then end on this. Now the cool thing here is Once it's your opponent's turn, you can use the Mirror Sword Knight, as you know, and get back your Baphomet, which will add 2 cards to your hand. But more importantly, once you fuse the Baphomet, you can revive the Diabels. And this card is actually really good against Tenpai, because they can't use Kaiman and they can't use Droplet, which are very strong cards. And more importantly, they have to set spellcraft. They can activate this turn, so they can set Lightning Storm and I mean, better to do it this way in that case. But they can set Lightning Storm and then flip it. So you could pop that Lightning Storm, but what's even better than that is you just wait with this until they set the field spell, and then you can pop the field spell with it. Because you always know if they set a field spell, they're on Tenpai, then you know that that's the Sangan summoning, so you can pop it with Diabels. And even if they out it somehow, let's say they give you Santa Claus, and after you negate it with Lars, you just use the Chimera effect Engrave to revive the Diabels again. Okay, now let's extend on the previous combo a bit by adding one more monster. In this case it would be Mirror Sword Knight, but you can have Tau or Nightmare Apprentice, all of them work. You just want to free up one of your searches, basically. In this case it would have been the search on Mirror Sword Knight, and we can use that search otherwise. So we would start just like the other combo. Actually it doesn't change that much in the beginning. So you go Patchwork, add these, you go Coatl, add the Gazelle, and you fuse all of them for Chimera, and you go Chain Link 1, 2, 3. So add another Patchwork, get the Nightmare Apprentice, or if you already have the Nightmare Apprentice, you can get the Mirror Sword Knight in this situation. Summon the Apprentice, discard whatever, and now you can actually add Master Tau. This will come in later, so we just stick to our normal combo. So if you want, you can go Lars here, and then you summon the Mirror Sword Knight and use that effect to summon Baphomet. Now Baphomet adds these two, and you just fuse like you did before into the other Baphomet, send the Diabels, and then you add back Chimera Fusion, set it. Oh, and the Big Wing Baphomet also summons back the Mirror Sword Knight. So now the Mirror Sword Knight in your opponent's turn can tribute itself to get you another Baphomet, which adds your Gazelle and the Chimera Fusion. And now you have fusion material in hand, but also once you fuse away the Baphomet, it'll trigger to resummon an illusion monster, and that will summon the Diabels. Now what's also cool is, even if you don't do this, if you fuse something else, like say you want to make Magnum and you used your Lars, you want to make Magnum, you fuse away the Lars here, and you can actually use the Tau in hand now to get the Magnum, and now the Tau Engrave triggers and can actually get you back Diabels. Now once again, hard to out here, and if they out it, you still have the Chimera Engrave to bring it back. Now let's rewind a bit here and go back to where we were when we had this, and we just summoned the Baphomet. So let's have Nightmare Apprentice, Lars, and just summon the Baphomet, and the Chimera Fusion is also not here. If you counted the summons, then you know that this is 1, 2, 3 summons. Mirror Sword Knight summon number 4, and Baphomet summon number 5. Now, if your opponent has a Nibiru and they say, okay, I don't want them to go into the next fusion, because then once I fuse into Baphomet, I can, even if they nib me, use the Chimera to revive something, and then the Baphomet to revive the Chimera, and both Mirror Sword Knight and Coatl revive. So if your opponent says, hey, I want to nib this, so they go Chaining 2 on the Big Wing Baphomet, nib, and they out your board. So you get a token, and your Baphomet resolves and gets you Fusion and Gazelle. Now what's really funny here is they now have a nib on the field, and you can just activate the Chimera Fusion, fuse the nib token, add the 2 cards in your hand, and go into my favorite card, Guardian Chimera. So now you actually have Chainlink 1 Guardian Chimera, Chainlink 2 Tau, and the Tau can revive your Mirror Sword Knight. The Guardian Chimera will draw you 2 cards and pop their Nibiru. So what happens here is they use their Nibiru, so they lost the card in your hand, and in the end phase they will lose another card due to Chimera. And also, if you read Chimera Fusion carefully, the Chimera doesn't have to be on the field to add it back. It has to be on the field or graveyard, so you can just add this back, set it, and pass it to your opponent. In your opponent's turn, your Mirror Sword Knight can go into Baphomet, just like you know it, and you can activate the Chimera Fusion, go into a second Guardian Chimera or a Baphomet or whatever you want. And also you have in your grave the Chimera, so if you want to bury a statue then, Diabells then, you can use this Chimera Fusion to go into Baphomet, send whatever floodgate you like, and then revive it with the Chimera, and your opponent starts their turn with 4 cards in hand, basically. So this is a pretty cool way to play through Nib. Now this combo is just to show how everything in this deck is kind of connected and leads to the same thing. So with Lightmare Apprentice and Edgem Chain, for example, or Patchwork for that matter, I just took Edgem Chain just to demonstrate it. You can just go to the same point that you were in the previous combo. So you go Nightmare Apprentice by discarding the Edgem Chain, and then you can go Chainlink 1, Chainlink 2 to chain block this from Ash, add a Patchwork, and you add Coatl. Now you can use the Patchwork to add Poly and Edgem Chain, and you use the Cornfield to get the Gazelle. Now you'll probably see that we're basically at the same point that we were in the first combo. You just poly these 2 into Chimera, and you add yourself Mirror Sword Knight, and you can't get yourself a Patchwork because you already used the Edgem Chain effect here. And then you just proceed as you know it. Lone Mirror Sword Knight, go into Baphomet, add these 2, fuse these 2, Baphomet sends Diabells, the other Baphomet resummons Mirror Sword Knight, add back Chimera Fusion, and you're set. So basically the same thing as before, just you started a different way, but you got back to this point. Alright, the last combo is going to be a bit of a bonus. I'm currently not on Melodious Chimera, I'm playing Pure right now, but I just wanted, if anyone is interested in the Melodious combo, this is what I've been playing when I played the Melodious version. So if you only have Ostinato, this won't bring you into the Chimera combo, but if you have Mirror Sword Knight, Coatl, or Nightmare Apprentice, you can just Pendulum Summon the Mirror Sword Knight in that combo later on and just do your Chimera stuff there. But I just wanted to show you what one Ostinato can do here. So you use the Ostinato here, and you send Tam and Refrain. So Tam is an inclusion for this version because Tam on summon, if you control a Melodious monster, adds your Polymerization, which in this deck we already played Polymerization because we're on Patchwork. Very helpful. So you send these 2 into Baja, and then you can actually chain block Baja. I don't know if that's relevant, but you go Baja 1 and Tam 2. Tam just inflicts damage to your opponent if it's used for a fusion summon. So Baja will then summon from the deck a Refrain, and Refrain on summon will add you Couplet. Now this will, when you reveal it, when you add it to your hand, summon back a Melodious monster. Now it's important here to get the Refrain because of very specific sequencing that we have to use here. Now next up you're going to scale the Couplet and add the Concerto, and then you use the card and fuse one of your Refrains and the Couplet for another Baja. Now on resolution you'll get these 2 into your scales, which is really nice, and as your 5th summon. Before you do that, very important actually, I sometimes forget that step, but it's crucial. Since you still have a Refrain in deck, you will now use this Refrain to target a Melodious Fusion monster and send a Melodious from your deck to the grave, which would be the last Refrain. We need this one for later. So After this point, we'll no longer have Melodious Fusion on the field, so this is the last spot where you can do it. So now you overlay these two, and as your fifth summon, you get the otherwise Absolute Dragon, so if they nib you, you don't really care. And you're gonna link these two off to go into Cross Sheep. Now, I'm just gonna put it here. You have multiple triggers. You have the Absolute trigger, you have the Baja trigger, and you have the Concerto trigger. So let's just go Concerto, goes under the deck, and we just draw a random card. And then the Baja will resurrect the Refrain somewhere, and the Absolute Dragon will summon the Vortex Dragon in the zone that Cross Sheep points to, which will then trigger the Cross Sheep. And we also now have an Omnigate because we have a monster on our extra deck. I zoomed in a bit so you can see the cards better, so you can see the extra deck here. But we want to keep a monster here at all times until we make Appaloosa. So we can revive another monster, which in this case would be Tam-Tam. Now is the point where Tam-Tam activates, and you can add Polymerization to your hand, which will be useful later. So now you will link off Refrain and Cross Sheep into Beyond the Pendulum. So on summon, this can add Refrain from your extra deck, and we still have one Refrain on our extra deck. Use the effect, summon this Refrain, and you can now link these two off for Apple. Now that we are safe from Nib, we can just empty our extra deck by Pendulum Summoning. So if you have Mirror Sword Knight, this would be the spot where you would Pendulum Summon it, which is nice because you have slots here, right? You have these two for the extra deck, and then the Mirror Sword Knight from the hand can go here. So let's Pendulum Summon these two. And now what's important is that you can make a link play, but you want to keep one of the Refrains that came from the extra deck on the field. So you link off one of the Refrain and the Tam-Tam for SP Little Knight, or if you build your deck differently, just make any other link monster that you want. You can make IP here if you have the space. I didn't find the space, so I'm just going to make SP. And now for the last monster that you have left, if you have any monster in hand and you drew a card, due to Concerto, you can go Poly, fuse the Refrain from the field and whatever you have in hand, and go into Magnum the Reliever, because Refrain came from the extra deck, so we can use it to make Magnum. Now it's up to you to decide whether you want to draw with Magnum by shuffling the Poly back, or if you want to keep it as a pop, because otherwise you have to get a Polymerization or a fusion card into the deck in a different way. What's worth considering is you haven't used your normal summon up to this point, which is crazy. You can use the Magnum, put the Poly under your deck, draw a card, and if you draw Mirror Sword Knight, Coatl, or Nightmare Apprentice, you can, on top of this, still do Chimera combo. So that's it for the video. That's the last combo. Let me know if you would improve one of these combos, if you would do something differently. Let me know. I'm always eager to learn. Let me know if you like the combos and if you want to see more Chimera content. And see you next time.